chickadees. Welcome to this episode. And here we have some sexy purple heartwood that we will make some triangles of and inlay into our fingerboard. After we have cut out the binding and glued it on, we have some small gaps that the child wants to fix with the corresponding wood. So we mix it up with some wood glue, and we make a little putty. We press it in and let it cure, and then the child is removing all the excess. We then flush this down, and we have a really nice little seam to make sure that we don't have any cracks in the fingerboard. Be careful there, the child. You don't want to whack your finger with that. So, moving on to further triangles, or Illuminati as I like to call them. Having these tiny purple heartwood pieces is tedious. We have to make sure that they correspond perfectly with the triangles we've routed out. Using chisels and different bits and bobs, the child is doing good work of making sure that the triangle sits in place. Now we don't want to lose that little triangle, so we tape that sucker down. Now when we come to the high register of the fretboard, the child wanted to use another wood that adds a contrast. So here we have some tiny pieces of Carina wood. After all the pieces are cut out, we superglue those little triangles down. Some little Illuminati pieces are making a hassle. But the child will persevere with a lot of super glue. When we have snuggled all the Illuminati pieces onto the fingerboard, we can now remove the tape. See that we have some heightened triangles. Those Carina wood pieces and purple heart pieces really contrast the chocolatey wood nicely. So using a chisel, the child is removing the excess. Now, after removing these, we still want to make sure that, just as with the binding, we don't want any gaps. So we have some sawdust from the purple heart and the Carina wood that we dab onto the fretboard. And then using super glue and more of the sawdust, we fill these pores. And you notice that the child has some tape on his finger. That's because we don't want the super glue getting stuck to our fingers. Don't read the child. Super glue on finger is not fun. Super glue in the eyes is even less fun. here, the child is making sure that the super glue don't go into the fret slots. Since we now have a bound fretboard, it would be even more of a problem to try to get that out. Next, on to the Carina wood. Same rules apply here. Filling, gluing, and filling in more. Dab those inlays, the child. Then we take our sander and we sand it down straight. Revealing a nice, smooth triangle piece for inlay.
Instagramming my jawline. Hashtag you don't need to bother. All you people wanna be like me. In fact,
Sweet black butter.
when I enter the room, there's light from above and people chanting out my name. Living life to the fullest. It is fucking awesome to be here. Vanity is the mirror in control. Can I make it better? Sanity. Losing sight of
Next step now, since the fretboard is finished, we want to glue it onto the neck. So firstly, the child makes sure that the alignment is correct, so that we are not getting a fretboard that's all wonky, or too low or too high. He makes 2 holes for some little cocktail sticks, which will help us greatly when the child wants to glue it on, as to not having any slippage, misaligning the whole fretboard.
vanity is the mirror in control. Can I make it better? Sanity. Losing sight of my own.
Now the moment of truth. Tape. Just to make sure that we don't get any glue into the truss rod.
But I will fight for me.
We don't want the truss rod to rattle around. By having a good truss rod route ensures that we won't. But we, on the other hand, don't want to glue it shut, because that will cause problems if we're trying to adjust the truss rod further down the line.
It's all about finding your own truth. It's your own goddamn fault when you're
The child has tried both to leave the tape in or removing the tape. Both works. The tape will just be sarcophagused inside the fretboard tomb. If you leave it inlays.
It's raging from beneath.
And then the clamping. And the glue squeeze out.
Consequence. It's all about finding your own truth. Be the adventurer that wanders out in darkness, seeker of the holy grail that shines on me and you. There will be hardships wreaking havoc above. Know that I believe in you.
Next day, the glue is all dried up. We remove the clamps to reveal something that actually starts to look like a proper neck. And since we now have our fretboard to size, we can route out the excess pieces of the binding to make it flush with the neck.
Consequence of your own choices.
edged piece. Since we don't have any neck to help us, we have to go carefully and do that by hand. Here the child is routing out a little bit more space for the truss rod to be adjusted.
It's all about finding your own truth. I can take the heat.
The ebony piece is there to make it straighter, so as to not have a router wobble. That is a bad thing. And here the child is truing up the fretboard and the neck with the sander. Also, the head. Making sure that we have fine and even lines, just as we did with the body. We're going over to a smaller, little circular sander for those little pesky bits that we cannot reach. The child is ensuring that his head is blocking the view. There we go. Maybe you don't want to show his trade secrets. Or maybe he thinks that I won't find out what he's doing. I will always find out. Always.
You will come knocking on my door to say, come out and play. There is the culprit of it all in me. I think too loudly. It's stuck here, making it so bold.
Tellurians, please like, share, and subscribe and all that jazz. Until next time, ta-ta!
I freeze up, standing in